Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Cinemacast. Right here on our YouTube channel and on Rumble as well. Make sure you hit that like and hit that subscribe button down below. If you want to check us out on our streaming platforms and social media, Discord and such, links are all down below in the description section. So welcome back to the cinema. And today we got a special treat for you. Today's feature is 2024's Y2K. And this is an interesting one too. This was actually, hold on, because I blew up the picture. This was produced by Jonah Hill. Now I gotta say, somebody like Jonah Hill, he was in a lot of different movies, you know, comedies and such, you know, and this guy, he's just reading up on his personal life. I want to say, like, Jonah Hill is one of those people that's kind of like Jack Black to me, where I know I've seen a couple of his movies that I can tolerate, but it's just something about him that I do not care about. But he did produce this movie, and this movie was directed by Kyle Mooney. And I don't know a whole lot of movies that's under his belt. Let me see. Kyle Mooney. I guess that's how you pronounce it, Mooney or Mooney. So he had some roles in movies and TV shows and such, and he was also a director and all. Pretty much the only things that I can see him that were in movies that I know, but I have never seen or watched, which was Zoolander 2, Neighbors 2 with Seth Rogen. I cannot stand Seth Rogen at all. Apparently he voiced Michelangelo in the animated Batman vs. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. No Hard Feelings. I think I heard of that, but I have not seen it. Otherwise, this is the only movie from him that I've seen, and he is also plays a part in this movie as well. So Y2K, now think back, okay, it's the year 2025, right? Think back 25 years ago, or just a little over 25 years ago, 1999, all right? Remember back then where they kept saying that the computers were not going to recognize the new millennium, that there was going to be all kind of glitches and stuff, and expect power outages or, you know, electronics not to work right, or they just shut down. The world was going to be in complete blackness because of Y2K, because they felt like the computers were not prepped for the new millennium and all. But guess what? They were wrong. I remember sitting in my parents' bedroom. I was 15 years old. I was in middle school still. I was in 8th grade. And I remember sitting there watching the ball drop. You know, I was sitting in my parents' bedroom. My parents were out in the living room or whatever, you know. And I'm sitting there expecting something to happen. I'm like, is something actually going to happen? I knew it wasn't, but I was just sitting there just in case. Like, when midnight hit, nothing happened. TV was still on. People were cheering for a new year. And when I went back and checked my computer, it read 1/1/2000. So, yeah, the computers were good for the new millennium, and they still are 25 years later. But you know what? The Simpsons made a prediction in one of their Treehouse of Horror episodes where Y2K was a thing. You know, when the new millennium struck and everything was going to go haywire. Planes were going to fall out of the sky. The kitchen appliances were going to go haywire, start throwing food at Homer or something. You know, Simpsons made a lot of predictions. They did a lot of things first. But then it's like, you know, bring it to perspective, live action though. What if something did happen? Well, what if Y2K was a phenomenal event that people, you know, barely scathed by and survived, right? So Y2K is a 2024 American apocalyptic science fiction comedy film. Now, don't let the poster fool you. Don't let the trailer fool you. It does have elements of horror in it. but this is mostly an apocalyptic sci-fi comedy. Now, let's think back for a second. Now, there was a trilogy of films that released within the mid to late 2000s starring Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. One of which was The Beginning, which was Shaun of the Dead, which pretty much mocked the zombie genre, but it did it very, very well. It was George A. Romero's favorite film. He loved it. He praised it. And then there was another film in the trilogy, which is called the Cornetto Trilogy, because Cornetto is a popular ice cream over in the UK where, you know, everything is originated at. So you got the second film, which is Hot Fuzz. It's a comedy film. It's dark comedy. It's got some thriller aspects to it. It's a whodunit murder mystery film, basically. And Simon Pegg plays a police officer. He's a good police officer in the movie, but he's looking too much into what's going on with the town. Why are there so many murders, and why are people just covering it up? But then you got the third film, which is titled The World's End. And mind you, this one may not be resonated strongly with the audience, but I particularly love it for what it is, because it starts out as a goofy comedy with this guy who is gone through or tried to go through Alcoholics Anonymous, and he's like, you know what? We never did The World's End. We never did the whole mile of hitting the pubs, all the pubs in one night. So he planned on getting together with his old buddies who had already moved on with their lives and such, and he was like, okay, we're going to do the Golden Mile, I think it was called. We're going to hit all the pubs in one night and make it to the world's end. Well, of course, while they were on their journey, things start to take a turn for the worst in a weird way, where the townspeople started droning out or seemed like drones in a sense. And it turns out that the whole town was alienated by androids, basically. And so it turns into like a sci-fi comedy in a sense with a little bit of horror aspect to it. And there's a lot of comedic value as well. Now, when I talk about a movie like The World's End, I want to kind of reference it sort of to this movie Y2K, because it has, I feel like it's borrowed some elements from a lot of different movies and put them all together in this one to make it seem like, okay, here's what happens at midnight, New Year's into the new millennium. Things are going to go haywire. Things are going to start moving around and actually start killing people. So yes, there is a lot of great violence and gore in this film. It's not gory like something like Terrifier or whatever. Don't jump ahead of me real quick with that. There are some head decapitations and body parts get cut off and stuff, but it's not as graphic as something like Terrifier. So going into the plot a little bit here, and it's going to be a little bit of spoiler for you, so if you don't want any spoilers, like I always say in these episodes, go watch the film first, come back, and hear my review on it. Now, I believe I watched this movie on Max. Yes, HBO Max. If you got the app for Max, HBO Max, whatever it's called, you can find this movie on there. So if you got that app, check it out. So here's a quick rundown. It is 1999. These teenagers, best friends Eli, Danny, and Garrett, discuss plans for a New Year's Eve while their parents are out of town. Eli has a crush on a classmate, Laura, who is too nervous to talk to her, despite Danny's encouragement to kiss her at midnight. They watch as Laura and her friends Trevor, Madison, and Rayleigh steal some alcohol and decide to crash a party held by Soccer Chris, Laura's boyfriend. Yes, that is his name. While partying, Eli watches in dismay as Chris and Laura kiss at midnight until the power suddenly goes out. So, I want to say the first 20 minutes of this film. Okay, so this movie is 93 minutes long. Hour and a half, typical for a movie like that. I want to say for like the first 20, 25 minutes, around there, roughly, you got these kids who are hanging out. You get a little backstory, a little bit. You got the bullies, the jocks that are bullying the nerdy kids. You know, they're best friends and all, and they're making plans on getting together. And then, you know, the one teenager has a crush on this girl, but she's got a boyfriend and such. So you got that style of story already right there. You know, you see that in a lot of different movies, especially horror movies that carry out a different plot, you know, in a sense. So it's got a little bit of that cliche, you know, okay, this guy likes this girl, but he don't know how to talk to her, and she's got a boyfriend and such. So there is a little bit of throwback for a lot of people at the beginning of this movie. You definitely see some 90s nostalgia, such as I think Windows 98 booting up, AOL Instant Messenger, logging on to AOL.com, checking the emails and stuff, and playing music on like Winamp or something. So there is a little bit of nostalgia there on a computer. So it's something that they want to bring you back into. It's like, oh, remember this, remember that. Trust me, it didn't really have much effect on me because I relive that every day of my life. I'm very nostalgic myself, so I'm like, yeah, I know AOL and semester. I remember it. I was there. I relived those days. I remember. It's all good. You know, I still think back to them and such. So with this movie having a lot of throwbacks, and then leading up within the first half hour, leading up to the point where at midnight things start going awry. Power goes out, and then people start ending up dead at this party. You know, the first one was a student who was found dead with a piece of a fan lodged in his head, and like a ceiling fan just broke off and plunged him in the head, and that was it. And then you see a toy car that comes in remotely, nobody's controlling it, pulls up to one of the teenagers with a can of hairspray and a lighter, and proceeds to light him on fire, killing him, which prompts in panic. So then while all these people that are at this party are screaming and running in panic, every electronic in this house is pretty much taking a mind of its own, starting to do its own thing, like a dishwasher opening, tripping somebody into a microwave, and the microwave comes on and pretty much scrambles their brains, kind of thing. So you already are pushed right into what is going on very quickly, and it all happens within a matter of 5 minutes or so until the survivors make their way out of that house. So it's about a 5-10 minute scene for all that going on. Now, one part of this whole scene that has another reminiscing feel to it from another horror movie that came out in the late 90s, which was called Virus, starring Jamie Lee Curtis, and I think it was Donald Sutherland was in it too. And it was about this, pretty much this, like, I want to say it was like an alien wavelength that was flying through space, taking over machines, and it made its way down on this abandoned ship, killing all the ship crew. And the ship stayed dormant in the ocean until this crew, led by Donald Sutherland's character, pulls in, and they learn what happened to the crew and what's going on. They learn that there's this virus. It's a alien virus that's taken over all the machinery in the ship, and it's also using machines to kill humans, to assimilate them and create a bigger being for slaughtering. So there's a little bit of that in this movie where I don't know how it happens. None of the teenagers are doing it, but the machines are pretty much pulling themselves together to create one massive monster machine made out of different electronics. We're talking VCRs, videotapes, Tamagotchis, CD players, all kind of stuff, monitors, computers. So there is a horror-based monster in this movie that forms itself, and it's something that tries to chase kids down. And these kids are looking for a way to shut down the system while the girl is a professional hacker. And the guy, Eli, who is in love with her, he praises her for who she is and what she does, and say, you can do it. You can use a kill code basically to shut these things down. So they make it their mission to try to make it all the way back to the school where everything originates out of. There's this big system that's in the school that resides, that controls all these machines. And of course, this whole entire night, these machines are rounding up certain human beings to assimilate them in the gymnasium of the school. Now, there is another throwback right there within this movie that I noticed when watching. When these machines created by electronics are assimilating human beings, it is a throwback to the movie Star Trek First Contact, or the earlier on series of Star Trek The Next Generation, starring Patrick Stewart, where, especially in the movie First Contact, you learn about the Borg species, who capture humans throughout the universe and assimilate them for their beings. And that's pretty much what so you kick back through this. They put them in this machine, they walk through it, they have this little thing attached to the side of their head, which, you know, is kind of like with a Borg, you know, you put this thing on the side of their head and their eyes turn red and it's all mechanical and stuff. So yeah, so there's already like 3, maybe 4 movie references from movies in the 90s that are put into this movie all together. And there is just a lot going on. And mind you, while all this horrific stuff is going on around these kids, you gotta think that, yes, it is sci-fi. There's not too much horror to it, even though it does feel like a horror movie. But it's also a comedy movie, so it's almost like you forget it's a comedy in a sense until, you know, some certain laughs and chuckles are thrown in there. Now, on their journey to the school to take care of everything, and this is the biggest thing of all, even though this movie has a whole lot of throwback when it comes to electronics, when it comes to the internet, anything at all, one of the biggest things that came out back in the late 90s, early 2000s is in this movie, and that is Limp Bizkit's frontman, Fred Durst. I shit you not. Fred Durst is in this movie. He comes in like almost a little over halfway into this movie and becomes a prominent character to helping these kids stop these machines. And of course, there is a little minor concertina toward the end, spoiler, with the one girl playing guitar and Fred Durst singing his variation of George Michael's Faith that Limp Bizkit covered. So yeah, you see Fred Durst in this movie. You also see Wes Borland. Wes Borland, the guitarist for Limp Bizkit, he also has a minor part in this movie as well. So you got to think, back in the late 90s, you know, Limp Bizkit, they had just released $3 Bill Y'all, I think in 97 or 98, followed by Significant Other, which had the song Break Stuff in it. And of course, that song is played 2 or 3 times throughout this movie, but does come to an abrupt stop when something happens. So yeah, Chocolate Starfish has not been out yet. Chocolate Starfish came out in 2000, I think, 2001. So yeah, Limp Bizkit already had 2 albums out in the late 90s. So go figure, you know, that they would have Fred Durst in here. Now, when it comes to Fred Durst, yes, Limp Bizkit are still performing, and he's got a lot of different stage props that he was using for the last 3 years, where he's wearing old man wigs and such, you know, having a different persona on stage. But let me guarantee you, in this movie, he looks almost like how he did back in the late 90s. Shaved head, had the little goatee going on. He's even presented with his iconic MLB cap, the red cap. It's just like everything's just thrown back. So there is a big mix mash of a lot of things going on with this movie. And mind you, in the end, it does have a pretty good, decent ending to it, with a possible cliffhanger that there could possibly be a follow-up to it. I don't know if they will do a follow-up to the movie with the way it ended, but let me just say, this movie, there was just so much going on for it. Now, reading up on the responses from websites like Rotten Tomatoes, the movie earned a 42% out of 105 different critic reviews, which are positive, and their average rating of 5.2 out of 10. And the website's consensus reads, Y2K earns points for ambition and sheer audacity, even if it struggles to keep the laughs coming while maintaining a messy tonal blend. Metacritic, which uses a weighted average, assigned the film a score of 49 out of 100, indicating mixed or average reviews. Then we got Clint Worthington of RogerEbert.com, which gave it a 1.5 out of 4 stars. When it comes to Roger Ebert, it's hit or miss. I don't care too much for Roger Ebert because there were a lot of great movies that came out in the 80s and the 90s that he has completely shat on. And these are critic reviews. You know, movie critics, they try to tell you, don't go see this movie or go see this movie. And whatever their views on the movie are, somebody's going to watch it and their views on the movie is going to be completely opposite. So if you're into a good, fun sci-fi / horror movie like this, you may be in for a treat. But yeah, Cliff Worthington said, unfavorably comparing to Brigsby Bear and concluding, Y2K doesn't want to break stuff. He had to put the pun in there. Limp Bizkit's song "Break Stuff." They had to put it in his consensus. Y2K doesn't want to break stuff. It wants to dig it out of the trash and pine nostalgically for it. That's just not interesting. And then you got Variety's Owen Gleiberman, who wrote, Y2K turns out to be an Attack of the Machines movie. Yet it's still very much a period piece high school comedy. So how well do the two go together? In my book, not very well. The last half hour, the cheeky dystopian alien tech horror farce simply was not good. I mean, you can make it for, take it for what it is, depending on what your thoughts are with it. Bloody Disgusting's Megan Navarro gave it a 4 out of 5, writing, while some of its meaner horror impulses get largely forgotten in the end, or by the end, it's tough to mind at all thanks to the non-stop playful tone, killer soundtrack, wacky murder bots, and the talent in front of and behind the camera that ensure a party worth rewinding the clock back for. Now, I will say, when it comes to the talent, as they said, in front of the camera, it's very tongue-in-cheek. It's can be very cringe at times. I mean, you're talking about a movie here that is taking a flashback to the late 90s to 1999, where a lot of different things were very popular for the time for us, when we were teenagers back then. We're talking about the music, the movies, the internet, the games we played, a lot of different hobbies that we had. Just a lot of different things back in the 90s where it is a comfortable time for a lot of us, and especially me in particular, where I just daydream at times, just thinking back to the good old days of, when it was the late 90s, and I just enjoy the period. I enjoy the nostalgia factor of things. Does this movie relive my nostalgic memories? Not really. Like I said, I could relive my nostalgic memories on my own. Even though this movie wants to try to do that for a lot of people, and it's something very interesting where it takes memories that you have 25 years ago and put it with a soundtrack of the music of the times, the different music that came out back in the 90s, and then you got murder, robots. Basically, you got machines that are putting themselves together and make one big robot that goes around killing people and such. And of course, this movie being 90 minutes long and everything resolves in the end, everything takes place on one night, New Year's Eve into New Year's Day. That is the setting of the whole movie. And you figure, you go into, midnight, New Year's, everything happens, and then by morning, everything's pretty much resolved, that kind of thing. So, it's very tongue-in-cheek, just the acting, the production value of this film. Like, I don't want to say it's a complete mess, but I will say there are going to be people that are either fans of this movie and like it for what it is, and then there's going to be people that look at it and be like, what the hell did I just watch? Because like some of these reviews say, they say it's a complete mix of what the hell, basically. It's like, I don't even know what's going on here. You got a high school comedy film mixed with sci-fi horror. It doesn't really blend all that well. You got, these kids that are trying to plan a New Year's Eve party, and then next thing you know, this cheeky dystopian alien tech horror farce comes into play, and now they're, battling to survive, basically, and then everything just takes a sharp turns every which way it could. There's even a certain character, I forgot what his name was. He's a real hippie guy. That's his role. He's like a hippie. He's very hippie, very very hippie. Like stonehead, pothead hippie, and it's just very corny. It's very cringy with how this guy plays his role out the way he does. And he is just all over the camera. He's all over the place with explaining things, talking about, certain aspects of the scene. It's just something that's cringy, and it's all over the place, and I can't quite explain any more than that. Now, what do I think about this movie in a whole? After seeing it, after wanting to see it, I will say that this movie, it is a sort of a fun experience to sit and watch with some friends of yours, especially if you just want to sit around, and talk about the good old days of the 90s into the 2000s. Maybe, some of y'all were adults and working, or maybe some of y'all were in high school or middle school or whatever. Hey, I remember when Y2K happened and nothing happened. I remember that, but what if, that kind of thing. So I will say a movie like this, it's something, like I said, to watch with a group of friends where you can relive good memories of something and just have fun watching a movie. Yes, is it bad? It's bad, but it's good bad. It's a good bad, basically. Is it worth watching? For the most part, a once over. And then if it's not your cup of tea, don't worry, you won't have to go back to it. Or if you enjoyed it, maybe there's somebody that may enjoy it or may not enjoy it, but hey, go sit through it again. My rating for this movie, Y2K, it was a fun experience. I had some good laughs, especially when seeing Fred Durst on the screen, and it's Fred being Fred, it's him being Fred, Limp Bizkit Fred. That's all it is, and just his scenes alone, within the last 20-25 minutes of the film made it all worthwhile, in a sense, to just make it a little bit more nostalgic in a sense. Would I watch this movie again? I probably would. I wouldn't make it my favorite movie to where I watch it all the time, but it's definitely worth a viewing, and it is good in a sense, despite what the critic reviews say. I give Y2K a 6.5 out of 10. Yes, there are some flaws with this movie. There are some areas that keep it from, that have it falling short of what they want it to be. And it's a fun, it's got, so it's almost like you can't fully call it a horror movie in a sense. It's got horror elements, but I feel like it's more of a comedic thing. It's kind of like the movie The Watch with Ben Stiller and Vince Vaughn, where they're fighting aliens at a Costco. So that's pretty much how this movie feels like, in a sense. If you've watched movies like The Watch or even The World's End, then you're definitely in this. You're in for something. You're in for a treat, and especially since it revolved around a time where everybody thought that, hey, the new millennium, computers are going to crash and different things are going to happen and people are going to die, planes are going to fall from the sky and stuff. And a lot of those aspects did appear in the movie, like planes didn't really quite fall, but they ended up crashing with each other in one scene. So there's a spoiler for you right there. But anyway, I'm going to head out of here, guys. I had a little bit of fun here talking about the movie Y2K. Like I said, it is streaming on HBO Max right now if you guys want to check it out. Did you see the movie? Did you watch Y2K? What do you guys think about it? Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments section. Are you very nostalgic? Hey, come on over to our Discord server. Link is in the description section, and share your nostalgia. We got several channels over there. You can talk about nostalgia, anything, movies, music, gaming, books, whatever. Come join us on the Discord. And guys, thank you for joining me today at the cinema for today's feature, Y2K. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And until next time, I'll catch you guys right back here at the cinema.